Welcome back. We're going to dive right into lesson 3, our dietary blueprint here. And that is simply said, eat simply. One of the biggest mistakes I know people make, and that I see people make, is that they try to get too extravagant with the meals that they cook. They think they're going to miss flavors, and so they have to find these special recipes and special healthy recipes and healthy meals to cook. But then they have to go through the grocery store on a scavenger hunt to find all the ingredients, and they have to figure out how to cook it at home. It's new things, and then it's good, you're trying new things, but you're making it probably 10 times more work than it has to be. And we go back to the earlier lessons, and the reason this is lesson 3 and it's not lesson 1, where we're waiting to talk about food content and plate distribution till lesson 3, is because we have to get through those first 2, where we're making sure that these are foods that you know and that you enjoy, and that you can make easy choices. You don't have to search through the internet and find recipes that maybe you'll eat. We're thinking about foods that you enjoy and that you love and that you're used to cooking. We're just using them in a different way, and maybe in different combinations, and maybe using a few different spices that you haven't used, things like that. So that's basically what we're talking about, why we think about it in those terms of eat simply. So not every meal has to be this big extravagant thing, and you don't have to go out of your way to eat healthy. You just have to we're just making some different choices and learning how to make better decisions with the tools that we already have. Right? That's the whole point. It's the whole point of what we're doing here. So on your printout here and on your resource that you have available, your download, however you're using it, you can print it out and have it on your refrigerator, or have it available to you to take a look at whenever you need a little more encouragement, things like that, or just a little reminder. You have this plate distribution. And I'm going to try to, my depiction, I'm not the greatest artist. Anybody that knows me will tell you I don't draw. Or I draw quite badly. So I'm doing my best here, right? Anyway, so your plate distribution. So this is your plate. Your plate. And half of that plate is vegetables. Vegetables, raw and cooked, preferably. Now, again, if you're out eating or something like that and you have a plate full or a half a plate of steamed vegetables, that's totally fine. Or if you're at home and you don't have any raw vegetables, you don't have any lettuce or anything that you, that you enjoy eating or that you will eat. So don't force yourself to eat things that just to meet, some of these requirements. So make sure that you find those ways to satisfy that. But as long as you have vegetables on there and they're not immersed in oil and things like that, you haven't really sauteed them in a bunch of oil, then this should meet that requirement. And the reason that vegetables are taking priority here is for many reasons, really. But the 3 biggest reasons is that vegetables are low in calories. So veggies are low calorie and high nutrient. And that's what we want to prioritize. We want to prioritize the nutrients. Remember, we're supporting your body, right? Remember lesson 1, we're supporting the body. We're supporting your goals. And we're supporting your goals with calorie content. We're supporting your body with the nutrient content. And this is low calorie, high nutrient. It's the best place to find that. So nutrient density is what they really refer to that as. And also, your gut flora loves it. So it is great for your guts. great for guts. That's because there are beneficial bacteria. We hear about our gut flora, good bacteria, bad bacteria, and all that kind of stuff. But you just know, all you need to know is that if you're eating fibrous vegetables, that your good bacteria is happy, and that it's doing good things for you. Because some of the byproducts of the bacterial metabolism, and it sounds weird, are actually very, very beneficial for you, and help mitigate insulin and calorie uptake and a whole host of things that good gut bacteria does for you. And the best way to support that is fibrous vegetables. And then fruits too, so fibrous fruits, those help too. But so that's why we're prioritizing those vegetables. Low calorie, high nutrient, and they're great for your guts. And to be honest, and let's be clear here, we're probably all adults here, so we can talk about this. It adds a lot of weight to what's passing through your digestive system. So your stools will be better and more well formed and things like that. And really it'll help clear the system a whole lot better. And it'll do twice as much good for you as any fiber drinks would. They tend to want to take the good things out of the real food that we eat and isolate them and say, this is what you need. And they would be all sorts of different fiber blends, but you're never going to get the benefit out of a powdered fiber that you would get out of the fiber you would get from fibrous vegetables. So non-starchy vegetables here. So that's the key. All right. So raw or cooked. And we did talk about, in an earlier video, we talked about frozen, and I'm just going to speak to that for just a second. So why frozen vegetables are sometimes a really good choice, and almost a better choice sometimes, is because when they're frozen, they're picked at the peak of ripeness. Because they want you to thaw those out and have it be completely ready to eat. What you buy in the grocery store, what's sitting fresh in the grocery store, has been picked young, and it ripens on the shelf. So really it hasn't had the time to uptake, as much time to uptake the full nutrient profile and all of those things. So, but there's a trade-off on energy and lots of different things, but we don't get too far down those rabbit holes. Remember, we're trying to keep it simple, doable, and if you continue to make better decisions step by step, then you'll get to where you want to be, your body-wise, environmentally, and all of those things, because it's it's a holistic endeavor, right? It's a holistic endeavor. That's all we're going to say about that. So frozen vegetables are okay, and steamed or lightly cooked. All right. So the rest of the plate, quarter of the plate is starches. So starches, you know starches, right? Potatoes, any tubers really is a starch. So it's not a vegetable. Potato's not a vegetable. People say, I eat potato chips, I eat vegetables. No, that's not true. Especially not true with potato chips. You know that. But starches are anything that is non-fibrous and that is starchy. So any tubers or anything like that are starches. So your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, yams, yuca? Yuca is a kind of a popular one right now. It's great. I love yuca. It's good stuff. My wife is from the Dominican Republic. Little baby, she cooks the best yuca. So I got to give her props for that. If you need a yuca recipe or figuring out how the heck to deal with it, then let me know. I'll pass that along from her. So your starches there. Your grains are also starches. So your oats, your wheats, your rices, those are also starches. I think we make that mistake. We think of grains and starches in different categories, and it really is the same. It's the same thing. A grain is a starch. So we have those starches. Those are very calorie dense and tend to be nutrient low. Now, there's certain categories that have a little more nutrients. Your tubers and things like that will have more nutrients than your grains probably will. So, but have a blend of those, and again, choose what you enjoy. We're not going to get too complicated here right off the bat. If you eat bread, make a better choice in bread. Sprouted grain breads are great. Again, a little more expensive sometimes, a little more grainy, but those are some of those trade-offs that you're making. If you want to have a bread, have it be a little coarser bread, and not your Wonder Breads. Let's shift away from the Wonder Bread type. But if that's not the first thing that you give up, then that's okay. Or if you have a sandwich with it occasionally, then it's not going to totally derail you. Anyway, so let's keep those vegetables as the primary. Starches are a quarter, and then we're thinking about protein. Lots of debate about protein right now. It's whether it's going to kill you or whether it's the best thing for you. And I really think it depends on what your goals are. I think if you're bodybuilding and you're building muscle, then maybe a little more protein, things like that. And I know we all, in the end, we want to build some muscle, but you can build muscle and have just a regular, reasonable diet. Yeah, but if you're looking to really bulk up and be a power lifter or bodybuilder, then there's different requirements here. So there's a requirement for health and there's a requirement for performance, and it's different. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And most of us, I think, here are just looking to be healthier and have a healthier diet. And so let's just keep it simple, okay? So we're looking at this protein here. Let's minimize the red meats. You don't have to eliminate red meat, but red meat does tend to be pretty fatty and high calorie content. So let's minimize that red meat a little bit. And if you're eating red meat every day, then maybe every other day, things like that. Your lean meats, your turkey, your chicken, things like that are pretty decent. Fish, if you like fish, it's good protein. If you're looking for plant proteins, and I know there's a lot of big movement toward plant-based diets, and they're good. They're good. They can be helpful, but they're not for everybody. But if they're for you, then your tofus, your tempehs, you really just eat edamame. Eat the real form of it. I would shy away from the lab-derived variety of proteins. So some of these wonder proteins, or I don't even know what you call them. They're in McDonald's and Burger King now. These patties that are made in the lab, and you can't get any more processed than that. So we're thinking about whole foods, close to fresh, things like that, even with your plant proteins. And let's steer away a little bit, if we can, from the concentrated powder proteins. Let's minimize that as well, because again, that's a very processed material. And your pea proteins, even things like that. I know that people supplement with that type of stuff, but have it be just a supplement and not part of your regular diet. That's my recommendation, at least. But again, if it's something that's a cornerstone of your diet and you're looking to start and make gradual changes, then you don't have to throw it out, but just make different choices. Start eating whole proteins. And eating even a tofu or a tempeh, it's pressed and things like that, but it goes through a different process and it's not as processed as some other things. So your protein isolates, let's steer away from those. Any isolated materials tends to be not as great for you. No matter what they sell you as, no matter how they sell it, how they package it, it's not as good as the real thing. It never will be. Anyway, I'll get off that high horse a little bit, trying to move right along. So on the side here, we'll put fruit in green. We have fruit. And a lot of times I'll have fruit as my dessert. And you know why? And we'll say dessert here. Two S's, right? So fruit is dessert because it clears your palate a little bit, and it does give you that kind of simple sugar lift. Because with this plate here, there's not going to be a lot of sugars. Your starches have sugars or turn into glucose, but if you're eating good starches, then they're slow starches. Your grains, and unless they're completely pulverized, your Wonder Breads and things like that, but even your tubers and things like those are what they call slow starches. So they're not going to uptake right away. And so if you're looking for that lift after the meal that you get from a meal, that you want to get from a meal, fruit's a good way to do that because it has the simple sugars in it, but they're good simple sugars. And they're simple sugars that your body can easily use. And so it clears your palate and gives you that lift that you're looking for. And I just like it. I think it's a good finish. After that kind of savory meal, probably, it's nice to have something fresh and it's kind of sweet to finish it off. And that brings us to fats. So fats, the reason I have it down at the bottom, and I have it pretty small, is because fats are hugely calorie dense. Hugely calorie dense. It doesn't take much fat. That's why it's a tablespoon is all they recommend for a serving size, because there's a huge amount of calories in those fats. And there tends to be a very low nutrient value. So when you're trying to eat a balanced diet, and then that's the key here, is we want a balanced diet that's going to support you, and that resembles somewhat the diet that you're eating already. So those fats, small portions, because it doesn't take much to really up the calories of your meal. So you want to think about your fats in small portions. And fats, you only really need to add fat if your protein is lean. So if you're eating, say, red meat that's pretty fatty and has a lot of fat on it, then I wouldn't add any fat. That's just the way I tend to think about that. But if you have a very lean protein, which your chickens and your turkeys tend to be, especially if you're eating plant proteins, your tofus and your tempehs, they have some fat, some natural plant-based fats, but I would add fats. And if you're thinking about fats, you'd think about good fats. I don't know why this is so sticky on me here. So good fats, like your avocados, your nuts, and nut sauces, and pressed oils, pressed vegetable oils. Are preferable because the oils go through two processes in extraction. They're either pressed out of whatever they're coming out of, or they go through a chemical process that's definitely not as good. Because remember, we're trying to mitigate chemicals, we're trying to mitigate chemical exposure of our food. So this is a basic guidelines here. So we think about this plate here, eating simply, and remember the lessons that we just had. Remember these foods in these categories need to be foods that you know and that you enjoy and that bring you joy, right? You want to have your foods in every meal be enjoyable. They don't have to be super memorable. They can be pretty standard, but you should enjoy eating them. So we're thinking about that. Half a plate of vegetables, quarter plate of starches, protein, fruit as dessert, fats if your protein is not fatty, and I would put fish in there. Fish is a pretty fatty, has a lot of fats usually, so I don't normally, I guess, add a fat to a meal that I'm eating fish at. Also, and we alluded to this earlier in an earlier lesson, that if you're really craving some sort of sweet thing, whether it's a chocolate or a pastry or things like that, or a really refined product, have it with your meal. It doesn't have to replace anything here, but it's something on the side. And I wouldn't necessarily even replace the fruit. You know, sugar for sugar, I wouldn't do that either, because your fruit's important too. It's a different type of thing. I would maybe even eat it after that sugary thing, again, to clear your palate, things like that. But have a small portion of it. Remember, it does a couple things for you. If you're craving it in the afternoon, you don't go grab it and it spikes your insulin, gets your hormones all out of whack, and all of those things. You want to go through a good hunger cycle. Doesn't disturb that hunger cycle and that food processing cycle, because it's all hormone driven. And if you go into some further lessons with us, you go a little deeper with us, then we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and the hormonal processes your body goes through with that hunger cycle, that fed and starvation cycle, and all those things. But that's another lesson down the road, or another few lessons. So if you have something sweet or need something sweet, have it with your meal. It also does a great job of helping you sit with those cravings and learn how to manage those cravings, and it gives them space. Remember, we talked about giving it space. And so that's where we're at there. Eat simply. Remember, it doesn't have to be a project. We're just thinking about this plate guideline here. That's all you need to do is foods that you know: half plate of vegetables, quarter plate of starches, quarter plate of protein, fruit on the side, add fats if you need to add them. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you reach out. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do that as we go here. So eat simply. It's number 3. We're coming at you with number 4. Stay tuned.